Yugala Kishore Jivana Maroni Gati Arunayi Kandira Kule Keli Adambera Ratana Vediri Dosha Bodhujan. All right, on Sakhi Brinde Vigyapti. Shakhi Brinde Vigyapti. Do we have any drummer?
I can play a little bit.
Please. How will I do this? Can I see it? I have very bad eyesight. I'll be able to manage.
Sakhi Vrinder.
Vigyapti.
Actually,
You don't have it?
Yeah. KK songs also doesn't have.
Oh, really? It's a very esoteric song. We can pass out songbooks though. Huh? We have songbooks there. We have hard copies. Actually, I'd like one of the big ones too. Maybe the print is bigger. And it would be on page, let's see. It's by Narottam Das Thakur from Prarthana. The name of the song is Sakhi Brinda Vigyapti. It's on page 90. Okay, sure.
Thank you.
This is a tune that was sung by one of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, Vishnu Jana Swami. He was very popular, a good musician, and he had like a festival program where they would go around in a bus to different college campuses. And what's that? It is in the KK song. Yes. Radha Krishna Pranamo. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna Pranamo. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna Pranamo. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Jugala Kishore. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Jugala Kishore. Radha Krishna Pranamo, Jugala Kishore. Radha Krishna Pranamo, Jugala Kishore. Jivana marane gati aro nahi mo. Jivana marane gati aro nahi mo. Kalindira kule keli kadamberavan. Kalindira kule keli kadamberavan. Ratana vedira uparo boshabo dujan. Ratana vedira uparo dujan. Shama gori ange diba chua chandanera gandha. Shama gori ange diba chandanera gandha. Chamaradulabo pabe Heri Mukha Chandra. Chamaradula. Pardon me. Please go on. I can't read. Gantiya mala tirmala dibodohagale. Gantiya mala tirmala dibodonhagale. Adhare tuliya dibo karpura tambule. Lalita Vishaka Adi Jaka Shakit Brinda. Lalita Vishaka Adi Jaka Shakit Brinda. Agyaya Koribo Sheva Charanara Vinda. Agyaya Koribo Sheva Charanara Vindam. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhura Dasharanudasha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhura Dasharanudasha. Sheva Abhilasha Koro Narotamodash. Sheva Abhilasha Koro Narotamodash. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna Pranamor. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna Pranamor. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Jugala Kishore. Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, Jugala Kishore. So here's a song. We have the translation here where Narottam Das Thakur is singing about how he will worship his beloved deities, Radha and Krishna. And Narottam Das Thakur's style of kirtan was famous for incorporating both the worship of Lord Chaitanya and also the worship of Radha Krishna. So he brought, the devotees in Vrindavan were chanting bhajans to Radha Krishna, and the devotees in Navadvip were chanting to Gaurahari. But Narottam Das Thakur wrote many bhajans showing how they could chant to both deities in the same songs. So he says, the divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, are my life and soul. In life or death, I have no other refuge but them. In a forest of small kadamba trees on the bank of the Jamuna, I will seat the divine couple on a throne made of brilliant jewels. I will anoint their dark and fair forms with sandalwood paste, scented with chuya, camphor. Is it camphor? No, that's karpura. What is chuya? And I will fan them with the chamara whisk. Oh, when will I behold their moon-like faces? After stringing together garlands of malati flowers, I will place them around their necks, and I will offer tambula scented with camphor to them, to their lotus mouths. With the permission of all the Sakhis, headed by Lalita and Vishakha, I will serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Narottam Das, the servant of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, longs for this service to the divine couple. So any reactions or to the song or comments about the song we just heard? Or?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for choosing this beautiful song. This actually, a couple of points that flash my mind is one is usually sometimes people think that if something is very valuable, then it has to be a lot of complicated process and then it should be almost not understandable. But the song, we see the highest devotional service is explained in such a lucid and such a simple language. The devotional service is actually not very complicated. It's the very simple offering of one's love to the lotus feet of Krishna. So that's one thing that really strikes out. Another thing is, even if some people who are devotionally, they're spiritual, so sometimes people are more eager to show that how they have actually seen Krishna, like Krishna came in dream or something. But here Narottam Das Thakur is longing. So the mood of longing is very prevalent here. So Narottam Das Thakur, he's basically longing to serve Krishna. And in that process, he's remembering all these beautiful sights. He's meditating how he could serve Krishna. So it's like the Vipralambha mood, and foundation of that is humility. That's very sweet and prevalent here. It's not an arrogant thing that I've got Krishna, now everybody is inferior. But here, he's longing for Krishna and is very humble, and such a sweet offering because of that has come out.
Yes, those are both very nice points. Srila Prabhupada would say devotional service is simple for the simple. And, it's just love, You love the deities and you want to offer them all respects and the best of everything, and you give your whole life to them. That's very simple, but most people can't love Krishna that way because they're engrossed in material life too much, and their hearts can't be that pure. But it's not some complicated process. And And yes, this mood is there. That's also, we see that in the song about the 6 Goswamis too. They're running around Vrindavan asking, where is Krishna? Is he there? Is he here? And in this song also we see Narottam Das Thakur saying, this is my longing, that I want to serve them in this way. And I'll take permission from the Lalita and Vishaka, and then he longs for this service. Sheva Abhilasha Kore, Narottama Das. So he's not like proud, oh, I've got this service, I'm in charge of the temple, I get to worship the deities whenever I want. It is very esoteric that he's going to create a throne made of jewels. How is he going to create a throne made of jewels? Does he have that many jewels? But in the song about the 6 Goswamis by Srinivasacharya, it says that in Vrindavan, all the roots of all the trees, underneath the roots there's all the valuable jewels, right? The land is made of Chintamani. So if we can meditate on Krishna, if we purify ourselves so that we can meditate clearly, then we have as many jewels as we'd like to offer to Krishna we can. Actually, when Krishna appeared in the prison of Kamsa, Vasudeva wanted to give lots of charity, give lots of cows to the brahmanas, but he was in the prison, so he gave them in his mind. He mentally gave the charity of cows. So if someone can control the mind, then they have more opulences than any billionaire, because with the mind they can offer any valuable jewels. There's a story I don't even remember the name of the devotee, one brahmachari. What is it? The Sringananda brahmachari? That Lord Chaitanya was going on a trip somewhere. He was on his way to go, I think, to Vrindavan, and the Sringananda brahmachari began creating a beautiful road for him to go on, with flowers and nice paving stones and shade trees, and he was creating this beautiful road for Lord Chaitanya to walk on, with jewels on it and everything in his mind. But then he was creating it all the way, and then after a certain point, his meditation broke, he couldn't create the road any further. So then he told all the devotees, Lord Chaitanya he won't go past that point. So actually, this form of worshiping Krishna in the mind, it's actual service. There's no difference from worshiping Krishna in the mind and worshiping Krishna with your body. As long as you're doing it with pure devotion, it's the same thing. Sometimes people say, oh, it's better if you can worship in the mind, or if you can chant silently or something. But in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, some residents of Vaikuntha say that, I think, or some residents of the higher, Mahar Loka or something, they say that. I think actually residents of Vaikuntha say that, I'm not sure. But then someone else, maybe it's the Mahar Loka residents say that, and the Vaikuntha Vasis defeat them. And they say, no, it's better to chant with your tongue. As long as you've got a tongue and you can chant and a voice, then it doesn't subtract anything by chanting out loud. It actually adds something, because other people can hear you, and there's other things that are involved when you chant out loud. Of course, in the beginning, we can't focus our mind very clearly, and nevertheless, if we chant with our tongue, we'll gradually get purified, and our mind will become purified too, and then we'll want to chant, and our heart will tell us we want to chant. So even if you don't want to chant, or if you don't feel like dancing, Srila Prabhupada would say, even if you don't feel like dancing, if you dance, you'll become inspired, and then you will feel like dancing. So this is service we can do. Service doesn't have to be hard work. We can just say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and then we're doing actual service. And And the service he's describing here, going into the forest and getting flowers and stringing them into garlands and grinding sandalwood and scenting it with chuya. Maybe this one tells us what chuya is. Let's see. No, the same translation. It just says scented with chuya. When our Bengali speakers will tell us what chuya is, it must be something saffron or something. So it's a very intimate song, though, isn't it? It's like very sweet that he's there describing his heart's desire to serve his deities, Radha and Krishna, on a jeweled throne in Vrindavan and beholding their beautiful faces. Are you looking up chuya?
Yeah.
Thanks. Their beautiful moon-like faces, their fair and dark forms. So today for Bhagavad Gita class I was going to read from chapter, unless there's any other comments about the song or... Yes, please, your comments are so nice.
Thank you. Just one more reference in this, as you are nicely explaining that devotional service is not constrained by just physical rendering, but it also can be done in the mind. So two reflections I have. One reference is in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we do have a reference of a South Indian Brahmin who was meditating. He was not very well to do, but then he wanted to offer a beautiful offering to the Lord. So he was meditating and he collected from the 7 rivers, he collected water, and then he took bath and then mentally collected water, and then with beautiful ingredients, now he is preparing sweet rice. And in the mind, he is offering to the Lord, but before offering, he wanted to see, he wanted to touch, like it may be very hot because the sweet rice should be taken cold. Prabhupada writes in that purport. So that sweet rice should be taken cold. So because of that, he touches to see that how it is hot or cold. As soon as he touches, his hands is burned, and he is surprised that I did everything mentally. How come my hand got burned? And
yes, his actual physical hand was burned, right?
Exactly. And the same time, in the Vaikuntha, the Lord laughs, and then all Lord's concerts, they are saying, "Why you are laughing?" So then he immediately sends his Vaikuntha airplane to pick up this person.
Chai.
So that's one reference. And yes, that this can be, this is not constrained by physical. In fact, we can see that all our actually devotional service starts from making a desire. So even Krishna fulfills that desire for everybody, whether it's a devotee or a non-devotee. Somebody desires a car, he gets it. Somebody desires a money, he gets it. Somebody desires devotional service, he gets it. So, but only thing is we are miser in desiring to desire to serve the Lord. But everything basically originates from a desire. Even big things has happened in this world out of a simple desire. Like Narad Muni desired that let Hiranyakashipu's son be devotee. Prahlad Maharaj came out. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur desired, let in the whole world Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita be widespreadly distributed, and that's happening now. So everything basically in this world, desires are very powerful, and even in our life we have seen, like if we desire to serve, that somehow Lord fulfills that desire. Also, this is another illustration.
We have to be intelligent enough to know what's worth desiring. And foolish people think if you have a lot of money, or if you have a lot of beauty, or if you have a lot of education, or a lot of fame and followers and prestige, then you will be very happy. But people have those things, and still they have to struggle with their own minds and senses, and they still are dying, and other things are happening. But they don't know that just having pure devotional service, which can be had by some simple monk living in outdoors without any car, without any jewelry or any, even without any family or anyone to protect him, but he's taking shelter of Krishna as his only shelter, as Narottam Das Thakur says here. If you have that kind of love, which is very rare, actually it's more rare. Krishna can give very easily opulences and other things, but to give pure devotion, that will control even Krishna. So it's described that that pure devotional service is very rare, because Krishna gives himself to devotees who have completely given themselves to him. He reciprocates like that. So we have to know that that's the, we should know for certain that that's the most valuable thing to have, is that pure devotion. And that it's said that the deities, the Archa form of the Lord can be worshipped. They can come in 8 different forms, I believe, and like they can be stone, they can be wood, they can be metal, they can be paintings also, and they can be jewelry. What did you say? Clay. They can be, earth, clay, and they can be mind. So the deity can actually be made of mind, even though it's a very subtle element, but it's also an element. So I was going to read from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 29, the last verse of the chapter. Has anyone noticed that Srila Prabhupada's purports in the end of the chapters are sometimes very nice? They summarize the entire chapters, and sometimes they're longer and more in depth. But yes, the story of the South Indian Brahmin that was in the Nectar of Devotion, there was also a devotee. In fact, a devotee who had very many followers, and he still has like a big sub-sampradaya, is I think it's Shyamananda. He used to be known as Dukhi Krishna Das. Is that Shyamananda? Yeah. So he was given the service. One service he was given was to sweep the Seva Kunj, where the Rasalila takes place. But another service he was given was to boil milk mentally. He would meditate on boiling milk and cooking down milk to prepare sweets for Krishna. And sometimes the milk in his meditation, the milk would boil over, and he would try to keep it from flowing over the pot with his arms, and his arms would get burned like that. Same thing was happening actually in our disciplic succession. So, verse 29 is a very famous verse. Prabhupada calls this the peace formula. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maha ishwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati bhoktarang yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridang sarva bhutanang yatva mang shantim richati bhoktarang yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridang sarva bhutanang yatva mang shantim richati. Bolo.
Bhaktaram yagna tapasam
Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Shuhidam Sarvabhutanam
Suhridang Sarvabhutanam
Gatva Mam Shantimicchati.
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati. Can you read it? Do your best.
Okay. Bhokta kram yajna tapsasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
sarvaloka maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
sudhiram sarvabhutanam
Suhridang Sarvabhutanam
jnatan mam santim vrichyati
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati.
Bhoktaram yagna tapasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Shuridam Sarvabhutanam
Suhridang Sarvabhutanam
Yadva Mam Shatimrachati.
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati.
Bhoktaram yajna tapasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
sarvaloka maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
srudam sarvabhutanam
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam
jnatva mam shanti vrichyati.
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati.
Bhoktaram yagyatapasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
sarvaloka maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
suhurdam sarvabhutanam
Suhridang Sarvabhutanam
natva mam santi vrichyati.
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati.
Bhoktaram yagna tapasam
Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Sarvaloka Maheshwaram
Suhridam Sarvabhutanam
Suhridang Sarvabhutanam
Yatva Mam Santim Richati.
Yatva Mang Shantim Richati. Anyone else? Word meanings. Bhoktaram, the beneficiary. Yagya, of sacrifices. Tapasam, and penances and austerities. Sarvaloka, of all planets and the demigods thereof. Maha Ishvaram, the Supreme Lord. Suhritam, the benefactor. Sarva, all. Bhutanam, the living entities. Yatva, thus knowing. Mam, me, Lord Krishna. Shantim, relief from material pangs. Richati, one achieves. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A person in full consciousness of me, translation first and then purport. Translation. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Please repeat. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. But they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest of all of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, Svetashvatara Upanishad 6.7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishvaranam Paramang Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be the lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. The 5th chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control the senses in every respect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage, or Brahma Nirvana. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavang Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitang Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Bancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. So, interesting purport. The first paragraph is describing this particular verse, the peace formula. And Srila Prabhupada says this is the formula for peace individually and collectively. So collectively means that in this world, especially nowadays, there's always a quarrel ready to break out somewhere, even over trifling matters. And sometimes there are wars, and the weapons that they use in the wars are very, very frightening, that even they have nuclear weapons that can destroy the whole planet, or so they think. Of course, Krishna is in control of everything. He's not going to let the planet be destroyed. But they have such evil minds that they've created these weapons that can do these horrible things, and they feel like we have to make more and more of these weapons. So, peace is something that people strive for, long for. They create think tanks and special institutions where people study how to achieve peace. They have diplomacy, large-scale diplomacy, United Nations, so many things, and mechanisms for resolving disputes. Just like in any society, there'll be some disputes, and they have some kind of village council or some way to resolve things, so that people don't start just killing each other. When I went to law school, there was a course about Icelandic sagas. Why would there be a course about Icelandic sagas? They had this Kalevala, these old medieval poems, but those poems were about blood feuds, that someone would kill somebody's brother, and then that person would have to kill them, and then someone from that family would kill them, until eventually people decided that we need a rule of law. We have to have someone who's king, and let the king be the only one who can decide who gets killed and who doesn't get killed. And so they try to resolve these conflicts. So there's so many conflicts, and we should strive to resolve them. But the real way to resolve them, both collectively and individually, is through this teaching of Bhagavad Gita. That if we know that Krishna is the benefactor of all sacrifices, that is, all human activity should be directed toward performing sacrifices. And ultimately, those sacrifices should be directed toward pleasing Krishna. And why? Because he's the supreme controller of all the planets and all the demigods. Different demigods control different planets. The whole universe is organized in that way. With so many controllers, we have election for who will be president of the United States, and there's presidents of so many countries, or prime ministers and stuff, and they all have their local controllers. And ultimately, there's one controller of a planet, perhaps. And Krishna is the controller of all the planets. He's the highest controller, the controller of all other controllers, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So he's the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Authority. He's also the Supreme Benefactor of everyone. Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He's a dear, most intimate friend of every person. He only wants their welfare. He's coming in the material world for those who are looking for happiness in the wrong way. He's coming as super soul to permit such activities, but he's not asserting himself and telling him what he wants. He's permitting them as super soul, as Vishnu. He's all pervading, he's the witness of everything, and he's arranging that everything can go on in this world of ignorance But his real internal desire, we know, is that he wants everyone to come out of this illusion, to stop. Like we were talking about before, it's important to know what we should want. It's important, if we could have any wish, if somehow a genie appeared from a lamp and said, I give you 3 wishes, or something like that, what would we wish for? I know everyone in this room would immediately say, please make me a pure devotee of Krishna. That's the best thing, that I can have genuine bhakti and without any distractions of ignorance and material attachments. Actually, sometimes people think that it's very important to develop gyan, freedom from ignorance, spiritual knowledge about, so you can explain all of the scriptures, and vairagya, or detachment, so that you can be very easily renounce everything and you can not be concerned about the course of events. But Srimad Bhagavatam says that Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashu Vairagyang Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. That if one has devotion to Vasudeva, Krishna, then Jnana and Vairagya will automatically appear in that person. Actually, all the great qualities of the demigods appear. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvair gunas tatra samasate suraha. All the good qualities of the demigods. Another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. They appear in the personality of someone who has devotion to Krishna. So, he's the benefactor of all sacrifices. He is the supreme controller and supreme authority, that he should be obeyed by everyone, even the greatest demigods. And he is the dear, most intimate friend of all living entities. And those who know that, they attain peace, individually and collectively. Individually means also we're not, in our own lives, we're not having peace. If we don't know Krishna, if we have some material attachments, people are finding their lives are very stressed out. They feel very harassed and anxiety. What will happen at my job? What will happen in my family? Will I get proper respect or treatment from my spouse or my children or my parents or just walking down the street? How will people treat me? What about my health? Sometimes I have no peace because I have indigestion or I have a fever or, different things toothache, different things can happen that cause us to feel, because of our material attachments, a lack of peace. We can't get any peace in this world. People are all thinking if I had enough money or enough authority, a promotion, a bigger position, then I wouldn't have to answer to this boss, and I would be above them, and I would have more peace. But then when you get that bigger position, you may find you have another boss above you. Krishna is the boss of all bosses. And if you know Krishna is also the dear, most intimate friend of all living entities, then individually we will be able to be peaceful in our mind. When we think of Krishna, it's like a soothing, cool effect. There's one song by Narottam Das Thakur where he says, Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala. He says that the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are like a million moons. That when the moon rises at night, it has this peaceful, cooling effect. It's said that the sunlight is very warm, but the moonlight is actually cooling. And the moonlight helps all the animals, the vegetables grow nicely. And Krishna says in the 15th chapter that he becomes the moon to give juice to all the vegetables and the drugs and things. So when we think of Krishna, immediately we have a soothing moon-like effect that everything is cool and peaceful. And the things that happen externally don't bother us as much because we have that happiness of that connection with Krishna. We know that he is the Supreme Father of all living entities. And therefore we're all related, and we all have one goal in mind, which is to please Krishna. And Jagarini is here. Where is she? I saw her come in. She often tells the story, Prabhupada told the story, that some children were massaging their father and they were envious of one another. So they were saying, no, you're not doing it right. And one was pulling on this leg, no, I get to massage him. And the other was pulling on that arm, I get to massage him. And then they started to actually hurt their father. So if we know that Krishna is our common father and that our goal, he's the beneficiary of all sacrifices, so our sacrifice won't be successful unless we can please Krishna, then all the people of the world can live happily and peacefully. So I'm not saying they should stop the United Nations or stop the different think tanks and college professors who are studying ways to promote peace and stop war and make for better understanding of people. But I am saying that if they knew this, if they wanted to find out, they could learn from Bhagavad Gita this one verse, that if people could learn this one thing about Krishna, of course to them it sounds like it's a different religion or something like that. They don't understand that Krishna is everyone's dearmost friend, he's in everyone's heart, and he's the father of all living entities, the controller of all the demigods. But it's actually very profound and true that this is the way to stop conflict in the world, by Krishna consciousness. And it actually works. It's an effective mechanism to attain peace, both individually and collectively. Well, I forget what I was just going to say, but there's that. Then the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada starts giving a summary of this chapter. And we were talking a little bit about this before, that devotional service in the mind or devotional service with the body are not two different things. Arjuna at the beginning of the chapter asks Krishna. Krishna had told in chapter 3, he told Arjuna, in chapter 2 he had told Arjuna that intelligence is better than work, right? That we should understand the spiritual reality of everything. And he ended up by saying one can achieve peace by following this divine way of life, of understanding, controlling the senses and understanding that the soul is superior. So then Arjuna in chapter 3 said, then why do you want me to fight the war? I should just meditate and focus on being intelligent and stop acting. And then Krishna said that if someone stops acting prematurely and they're imitation meditators, then they're just frauds and they fool themselves as well as other people. And they're called pretenders. But actually, God has given us this method of sacrifice, this cycle of sacrifice, that we should live in sacrifice and eat only the remnants of sacrifice. And even if one is completely liberated, one should still set a good example for others and work according to one's duties, rather than disturbing other people's minds by encouraging them to stop working prematurely. So in chapter 3, Krishna is explaining like that, and in chapter 4, Krishna reveals a little something about himself, that he taught this Bhagavad Gita, this science of yoga, to the sun god, Hare Krishna. And that Arjuna asked him, how is it that you taught Vivasvan, who's so much older than you? And Krishna said that you and I have both passed many births, but I can remember all of them. Krishna is different from Arjuna. He can remember all of them. Arjuna comes with him, but Arjuna doesn't remember everything. But Krishna remembers everything because he's the Supreme Lord. And he told about how he appears age after age in his original form by his own sweet will, and he's not controlled by Maya, and that he creates the different duties in the world, but that he's not affected by creating. Ordinarily, work has a reaction. We think of that. Every action, there's a reaction. When we do something, we influence something and something else influences us, and Arjuna was very concerned about that. How would his fighting the battle, what kind of karma would be produced? Would he incur sin? And Krishna was saying that this yoga he was teaching would be free one from karma bandha, right? It would liberate one from, and then Krishna said that one has to perform work as a sacrifice, and that will, otherwise work will bind you, karma bandha. Yagyartat karma non yatra loko yang karma bandhana tadartang karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Then if you do work for the satisfaction of Vishnu, you'll be liberated. So, but at the end of chapter 4, so Krishna started to describe how all the great sages in the past, they worked with knowledge of Krishna, of his transcendental nature. And working in that way, they also were freed from the reactions to work. And Krishna explained how one who works without any material attachment, one who has no other shelter but the Supreme Lord, that one who's in full knowledge and doesn't desire anything, doesn't hate anything, and so forth, that one who performs sacrifice in this way is actually free from reactions to work, just like Krishna. Janma karma chame divyam evang yoveti tatpata tyakpa dehang punar janmanati mamiti sorjana. Krishna says, if you know the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, you can also not take birth again. And your work, evang gyatva kritang karma purvairapi mumukshubhi kuru karma eva tasmat twang purvaik purvatarang kritam. You should work like the ancient sages did, who worked with that knowledge of me, about how my work was not binding on me, namang karmani limpanti, and then you will be liberated. And then he described all these different kinds of sacrifices that different yogis perform. Sacrifices of pranayama, sacrifices of work, sacrificing the objects of the senses into the senses, or sacrificing the objects of the senses by refraining from contacting them. Different kinds of sacrifices were described in chapter 4. And at the end of chapter 4, he said that just sacrificing property, objects, was not as was inferior to sacrifice in transcendental knowledge. What is that transcendental knowledge? One has to learn the knowledge of these different sacrifices from a bona fide spiritual master by inquiring submissively and rendering service. And when you've just learned the truth, you'll never again be an illusion, because you'll know that all living entities are part of Krishna, or in other words, they are Krishna's. Yena bhutanya sheshani drakshashyatmani yatomani. So he told Arjuna that all these different sacrifices, which involve performing different duties, they culminate in transcendental knowledge. And that transcendental knowledge is performing sacrifice in transcendental knowledge is superior to just sacrificing possessions. So, but then he said that therefore there's nothing better than knowledge, and you should clear up all your ignorance, and therefore, armed with yoga, stand up and fight the battle. So then chapter 5 begins. Arjuna says, wait a minute, you said that knowledge is better than possessions, and you said that one should clear up doubts and ignorance, and then now you're saying, armed with yoga, stand up and fight. First of all, you suggest that we should give up work, in favor of knowledge, and then you're suggesting that we should work in yoga, right, by working for Krishna. So tell me now, once and for all, which one is better? And Krishna says they're both good, but working in yoga is better. And then he says, and the one who works in yoga is quickly liberated. So this is chapter 5. He says that only those who are immature in their knowledge think that Sankhya is different from yoga. that in chapter 3 he had previously said there were these two different paths. In chapter 2 he had said that, and then in chapter 3 in 239 he had said that, and then in chapter 3, verse 3, Lokesmin dvividha nishta pura prokta mayanaga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. So now he's saying, but even though there's these two different paths, only those who are immature, they think that they're separate, because one who achieves success in one enjoys the results of both. Specifically, Srila Prabhupada says here, direct Krishna consciousness is bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga is a path leading to bhakti yoga. There's a famous painting in the old book, it might still be in this book, but in the original 1972 Macmillan book, there was a painting of, it showed an old jnani with white hair sitting and contemplating philosophical questions, and a devotee serving the deity. And then in the next panel, the super soul was in the heart of the jnani, and he became realized. You could see him. He's discovered. He realized super soul, and the devotee is there talking to the deity, And then in the third panel, the young devotee and the old jnani are in kirtan together in front of the deity in bliss, because they've achieved the same. When Krishna says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mang prapadyate, when one has really achieved success in jnana, one surrenders to Krishna and becomes a devotee. It's not like of course, you can't just do that by your own individual philosophical endeavors. You have to get the mercy of a devotee to become a devotee. But that's the ultimate success of jnana. And if you become a devotee, that jnana will become very easily yours. So, Krishna was explaining this point now in chapter 5. Arjuna had asked that question, and Krishna starts to say that one who actually performs devotional service shouldn't be considered to be engaged in any material activity. And those persons, they can see that they're not the material body, and they can see their senses are engaged with sense objects, but they themselves are aloof because they can simultaneously see their relationship with Krishna in trance. And so they enjoy happiness within, and they control the passions, anger and lust, kama, krodha, vimuktanam, yatinam, yatachetasam, abhito brahma nirvanam. What is it? Vartate viditatmanam. So this is chapter 5 that Krishna is explaining that the activities of yogis shouldn't be seen as somehow inferior to activities of transcendental knowledge, but actually the result of transcendental knowledge is one engages in the activities of yogis, and the real activities of the spiritual world are devotional service to Krishna. And we're now in this world, by performing such activities with our body, this is the direct process, and we're practicing, and it's enlivening us to get that experience. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in this purport. He says, Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute. And the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya illusion due to desire to lord over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with Maya, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by by practice in the material world. It is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. We may not be spontaneously attracted to chanting Hare Krishna, but in the spiritual world, everyone is spontaneously attracted to chanting Hare Krishna. That's what they love to do. They just want to serve Krishna to their heart's content, and they don't have any other desire than that, and nothing else gets in the way. But we have a very deep attachment for a long period of associating with matter, of thinking that we have to make some material adjustment in order to be happy and in order to avoid disaster. We have to make some material adjustment. And it's so deep-seated that even great yogis and sages who perform different spiritual practices, they sometimes fall down. They become enticed. Even Vishvamitra Muni was enticed by hearing the ankle bells of Menika. We hear these stories. So that attachment in the material world is very deep-rooted and strong. But the devotees who practice chanting Hare Krishna, they very easily can overcome that attachment. This is a very, very powerful medicine that it arouses. What does Srila Prabhupada say? Well, we should learn that sentence, that it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. So, the devotees in the spiritual world are waking Krishna up and dressing him and cooking nice things for him to eat and feeding him and taking care of him in this way. And similarly, the pujaris in the temple are waking Krishna up, dressing him, decorating him, feeding him, and taking care of him in this way too, offering arti to him. So they're doing the same activities as the devotees in spiritual existence are doing. And if they do it with purity in heart, then there's no difference. And if they don't have purity in heart, if they keep doing it, the purity will come. It actually works. That's the thing about chanting Hare Krishna, it really works. You've probably heard this before, that people would complain when we would go out and chant Hare Krishna, we'd tell everybody to chant Hare Krishna, and those who are sort of doubtful by nature would say, but that's just a word, you could chant any word, it would be the same thing, you could chant Coca-Cola, and it would do the same thing. And we would say, okay, you chant Coca-Cola, try it, but after you finish trying that, please try chanting Hare Krishna. Because it's not the same thing. Different mantras have different effects, and they'll take you to different places for those who know the science. And most mantras, one has to undergo very specific, detailed regimen to chant them correctly and pronounce them correctly, and you have to be properly initiated and trained to achieve, just like Arjuna had gotten weapons like from Shiva and from different demigods that would be propelled by mantras, and he could use these weapons, then they would actually do things. But the Hare Krishna mantra is very, very merciful. It's the highest mantra, it gives the highest thing, but we can just tell anyone, please chant Hare Krishna, try to chant Hare Krishna. And we don't have to tell them that first you have to, it's a secret, and first you have to come in the temple and live as a brahmachari and then get initiated, and then you can learn what the mantra is or anything like that. No, we're broadcasting it. Lord Chaitanya brought it out into the street and asked everyone to chant. In fact, it disturbed the brahmanas, the Hindu brahmanas of the time. They went and complained to the Muslim ruler there. Oh, why is he? This is not our tradition, we don't chant in the street. But this is, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, and he's come in this age, and he's giving this devotional service which is much higher than and easier and more effective than anything you could do by trying to practice Ashtanga yoga, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, control your breathing, all that stuff. The result, after you pass through all those stages and can enter into pure samadhi, then in that pure samadhi, if you're really an advanced yogi, you can see Krishna and engage in devotional service. Now Lord Chaitanya is saying, engage in devotional service right now. And if you engage with your full heart, you're doing just exactly what that great yogi is doing. The greatest yogi is doing. And most of the great yogis aren't getting that far. But we can get that far very easily just by chanting Hare Krishna. So this is the peace formula, both individually for ourselves, that we can become very peaceful and happy in any situation. A devotee can sit down in any place and remember Krishna, even in a miserable, distressful condition, whereas a materialistic person may spend millions of dollars to go on a great vacation and live in a castle with a beautiful vista of the sea, and still he's annoyed because he's not getting the pleasure that he expected he would get. No, it's very nice, everything's very nice, but I'm still not the Supreme Lord. I'm still subject to death and old age and hunger and disagreements with other people and so forth. But a devotee can be very peaceful. He can sit anywhere and enjoy remembering Krishna within his mind. If we remember these verses of Bhagavad Gita, if we learn to study Bhagavad Gita, remember the verses, then we can recite it to ourselves. When we're driving in our car, I have practical experience. When I'm driving in my car, instead of listening to the radio and getting an anxiety about the wars and politics and things, you turn the radio off and recite Bhagavad Gita, and immediately Krishna's teachings just flow into your heart and make you very, very happy and peaceful, and you can experience that very easily. Or chant japa, chant Hare Krishna. So, it's now 5:20, we go to 6:30 in this class, is that? 6 o'clock. So let's have some discussion at this point anyway. If anyone has questions, comments, realizations. Prabhu, you had such nice realizations before, so I'm expecting you to have something now.
Actually, thank you for choosing such beautiful topic. And while you were speaking so wonderfully, one thing was really daunting my mind, that you are the perfect person to actually explain this verse, because I don't remember any time seeing you angry. It's all the time we see Prabhuji, I remember is a blissful smiling.
You don't see me all the
time. It's so
time.
rare actually. No, whatever time I've seen. So thank you so much, because it's a realized knowledge coming. It really creates a deep impact. And this verse is so prominent in today's time, because we see at an individual level or at a micro to macro level, we have this problem of peace. Basically in 20th century, the biggest problem is stress that comes out of lack of peace. And this really gives us a perfect formula how to achieve peace. And one thing is, in this today's world, people are more on self-achievement, because that's a denial of God. So I can achieve, if I work hard, I can achieve money. If I work hard, I can achieve skill. So they deny talent, which is a gift of God, because immediately you have to accept that there is a higher power. So, but we cannot, somebody that does not have talent, so they, no matter how much work, hard work they may do, they may not be able to achieve that thing. So what it creates is a depression or stress, because people believe that they can achieve. So okay, if I work hard, then I can achieve. So if I have not achieved, that means you have not worked hard. So put more work, and this is such an endless, frustrating process of creating. Somebody, for example, in real life, somebody did not do well in maybe office, did not get a promotion. So immediately he blames himself. I did not work hard. And everybody surrounding him also is blaming. If you have just worked hard, he could have achieved it. Or same with the field of study or something. Somebody could not score good thing immediately. So stress is the biggest formula, and here comes such a sweet formula of recognizing that there is somebody beyond ourselves. So we can do certain things. So Prabhu, my question was, one thing I wanted to really ask you is, there are two things comes here. One is, yes, recognizing that yes, Krishna is there, somebody is there beyond our power. So there we recognize, okay, and at the same time, that is not just enough because we also have to put our part. So there has to be a balance between the two. Means another extreme situation can be, okay, there is somebody who is beyond our power, so in any ways it's going to come. So another extreme case is, okay, we don't put effort. So one part is we believe too much extremely on our effort. The another extreme is we just completely just put the whole thing on the God or higher powers. But the real thing can be achieved when. So how to strike the balance between the two?
The question, balance is important, but I want to address that we have to know what our effort should be. In this verse is saying Krishna is the benefactor, the beneficiary of sacrifice. So we may be trying to achieve different things without knowing what we should be actually striving for. If we know that we're striving to please Krishna rather than to, get better grades or get a car or get a house or bank balance, we should be striving to please Krishna with what we're doing. We should succeed in what we're doing, but we should do it for Krishna. We should do it just like Krishna wanted Arjuna to succeed in fighting the battle and win glory and defeat his enemies. But the point is that it wasn't so that you can enjoy the kingdom afterwards. It was because that's what I want you to do and that's how you can please me. So it's not a question of, I like your point that I hear people say, if you're poor, it must be because you're lazy, or if you don't do well in school, it must be because you don't apply yourself, or somehow you're inferior. But yeah, we all have been given different talents, and we're also supposed to use them in different ways cooperatively to do something nice for Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada taught us that what he wants us to do is to expand this movement, to keep his books in print, to distribute his books, to study them and understand them and teach other people about them, to show people how to practice devotional service, to establish temples, and also to show people how to live peacefully. We also were supposed to establish farm projects. We're still working on that. Farm projects, schools, to show people how to live a life in harmony with Krishna's will. But it's not so much, I think, that should you work hard or should you accept that Krishna is in control. Yeah, you should work hard in your service for Krishna, and you should know what your service is, and you shouldn't strive for things that that are not part of your service. And so there's a discussion of over-endeavoring over-endeavoring for things that are difficult to attain is one of the 6 faults that are bad for devotional service. And that means, we can endeavor very hard. When you were saying before that you don't see me getting angry much, I wanted to say that that's I think maybe a material perception, that Srila Prabhupada would get very intense and call people fools, and sometimes he would get furious. But it was all ecstasy. It was for Krishna, for devotional service, and this is the real thing: is to know what is the purpose. And Srila Prabhupada said this is practical samadhi. That we're working so hard to push on this movement. If I'm not getting angry, it's because I'm too lazy and I'm not working hard enough to push on this movement. To do everything with Krishna consciousness. But yes, we shouldn't think that to be a saintly person means to be very passive and still. Srila Prabhupada didn't like that idea, that he didn't want us to be. He said, when people asked about him, he said, I was never a lazy fellow. He said that he was always very active and very bold. And something that, if you hear, I encourage everyone to listen to the tape recordings of Srila Prabhupada in room conversations, morning walks, lectures and everything. He was full of energy, and he was always encouraging his students and making new goals for them to do and new challenges for them to meet, and encouraging them and making them feel, excited about getting this done. It wasn't our ashrams in Krishna consciousness weren't a place for lazy people to come and relax and be very peaceful and sit and chant. So we had to chant at least 16 rounds a day. And Prabhupada said this is the bare minimum, because Western people, you can't concentrate for very long periods of time. But we chant 16 rounds a day, but then he expected us to accomplish a lot of things, to purchase properties and have book distribution and make a lot of propaganda for Krishna consciousness around. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yes, we need balance in our lives. We have to know how to say no sometimes. We're householders. We need to spend time with our families, with our children. We shouldn't just spend all our time worshiping at the temple and saying, let everything else go to hell. We're supposed to lead a balanced life and show an example to people. That fits in again with Arjuna's question in the 3rd chapter and Krishna's answer, that he's not looking for some pretenders who are going to be the next Haridas Thakur and they're just going to sit and chant with tears coming down to their eyes all day long. Yes, if that's where you really are at, that's wonderful, but you don't have to try to fake that or imitate that. You have to do what Krishna has assigned to you as your quota, as your duty and your responsibility, and you do that well, but you do that conscientiously, because it's not just for you, it's for Krishna. So you have to know, this is my service for Krishna, and therefore I have to keep Krishna pleased with that. And with that, the balance will come, that these other things are service to Krishna. Arundhati one time, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada wrote Srila Prabhupada and said, that I like doing book distribution so much, or whether it was deity worship, I forget. But she said that I don't even want to take care of my child, I just want to do to worship all the time. And Srila Prabhupada wrote her back and he said, actually, your child is your deity, that you should be protecting and doing this service of not worshiping your child, but of caring for your child and everything as more important. And he said, but if you still don't want to do that, then as soon as the child is 5 years old, I will do it. I will take your child and he can travel with me everywhere and I will train him and do everything. But he was making her feel a little ashamed that she had asked that way. That we have our service to do, and we shouldn't try to do someone else's service. That Bhagavad Gita is full of descriptions of that. It's better to do our own service than to try to do the service of another. Even if we do our own service imperfectly, we have to do it the best we can, rather than to try to do someone else's service. And we all have a role to play. So the world is created by Krishna perfectly. Om Purnam Adahak Purnamadam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. That which comes from the complete, from the Purna, is also Purna. That is also complete. And the universe is emanating from Krishna, so it's also complete. Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. If you take the complete from the complete, it still remains complete. In other words, this is spiritual math. In material math, if you subtract 1 from 1, you get 0. But in spiritual math, even if you take that 1 away, the original 1, Krishna, will always remain full. He doesn't ever become exhausted. He can create millions of universes and still be the same with the same potency and same ability to create millions of more universes. So he's created this whole universe. Isha vasyamidang sarvang yat kincha jagatyang jagat. It's all owned and controlled by him. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. And it's all perfectly equipped so that everything can run in perfect harmony. Sometimes people think there was one scholar, philosopher, his name is Malthus, you may have heard of him. Malthusian is an adjective that means like this Thomas Malthus. He calculated that, so many people were on the world and they could eat so much food and everything, but if they keep having children, the world will become overpopulated and then there won't be enough to go around and it will create starvation and all these other problems. So this kind of Malthusian thought is still there, that people feel like, we have to control the world's population and keep it low enough so that we can have enough wealth to distribute around. But actually, the world is full of everything that's required. We have to treat it carefully. We shouldn't waste anything. We have to see everything as Krishna's property and that we're the caretakers. One time I was in Los Angeles and Vasu Ghosh was giving class and a devotee asked about, you say that you're not materialistic, but you live in these very nice temples and you eat very opulent prasadam. You live like rich people, you devotees. Why is that? And I raised my hand, and Vasu Ghosh liked my answer. I said, if you're the servant of a king, you get to eat the leftovers. You have to stay nearby, so you get to stay in the palace in the servants' quarters, and then you get to eat the leftovers. So it's part of. The world is designed in such a way that if we all work for Krishna's satisfaction, then there's a place for everyone, and some people, may have less talents and they're not supposed to become the prime minister or something like that. Maybe they're just a secretary in an office, but their part is important too, that everyone is playing a role in keeping the whole operation going so that the yajna can be performed and be satisfied for Krishna. And the important thing again is that it's done with transcendental knowledge. So if we're doing it for Krishna, it's not the activity is not different from the state of trance that the yogi is in. It's the same thing, that it's transcendental. The knowledge and the activity, this is the chapter 5 explains that the knowledge and the activity are on the same platform if they're in Krishna consciousness. That if one performs, so I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you did. I had a follow-up question.
Yeah.
That is that in this world we see that whether it is like outside or even like inside religious traditions, if a person is simply accepting the supremacy of Krishna, a God, immediately he is very peaceful because he is not. The moment he accepts that, he's not trying to control things anymore. But on the contrary, even in like so-called religious organization, if people are trying to falsely take Krishna's position, he can do the biggest harm. In fact, we can see like today's society or even in the past, the biggest confusions, the biggest hurt, the biggest battles have been fought on the concept of religion. So do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I remember Guru Das. Do you all know Guru Das? He sometimes comes here. He lives in San Francisco. He was a great preacher and very, very quick. He's very good speaker, glib. And he took a bus of devotees and traveled around Ireland with the devotees doing Sankirtan, distributing books, chanting parties, putting on plays. They would put on dramas for people. This was a way to attract a crowd, and then you could teach them about Krishna. And so one reporter came up to him and said, because in those days there was a war still going on between the Catholics and Protestants in Ireland. And they were there right in the border towns between where Northern Ireland and where the Catholic neighborhoods were and the Protestant neighborhoods. Londonderry or Derry, depending on whether you were from one group or the other group. And the reporter asked him, in our country we're all fighting over religion. Do you think what we really need is another religion? Is that what you think we need? And he said, oh, we're not teaching a religion, we're teaching love of God. And I think you could use more love of God. But that it's often brought up by atheists that, oh, religion is the cause of conflict. The cause of conflict is not religion. The conflict would be there anyway. But because religion is so close to people's hearts, it's an easy way to organize politics. What becomes very dear to them, and they feel it's being challenged or being threatened. And so if you want to get a whole bunch of followers, if you say, hey, they're threatening our religion, then you can stir up a crowd, and so you can cause a war that way, or you can cause people to have reasons for strife. But that's not what, some people misunderstand also Bhagavad Gita. Krishna's encouraging Arjuna to fight a war. So they say, oh, that's terrible, we need peace, and here you've got a book that's encouraging war. But they're missing the point. The point is that war is going on already anyway. This material world is full of conflict, not just in warfare, but also in our own daily lives. And that rather than try to make some material adjustment to stop the conflict, if we dedicate everything to Krishna, then we can become perfect. But the truth is that if everyone understood Krishna, and Krishna, it's not some sectarian religion. I was just reading Radhanath Swami's book, and he uses an example that Prabhupada used and that he often uses, that we don't say that when the sun rises over Japan, it's the Japanese sun, and then when it rises over California, it's the California sun, and then it becomes the India sun, or and we fight over whose sun it is. It's the sun in the sky, and it's shining on everyone. And similarly, there's only one God, and Krishna may not be completely understood by everybody, but he's the supreme God, and he allows himself to be understood in different ways by different people at different times. According to their particular mentality and their mood of devotion, he'll appear to them as Lord Rama or Lord Vamana, or he may appear, in the Semitic tradition as the God of the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims. And it's the same one God for them, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever. They argue over whether Jesus was really an incarnation or whether he was just a prophet and things like that. They have their arguments that they fight. But if we look at the bottom of it, most of all these fights, they're politics. And it comes up among scholars too. I was studying the Reformation in the 16th century Europe, and people were having doctrines over, whether how much is it free will or how much are we predetermined, and things like these different kinds of doctrines that theologians can come up with and argue on one side or the other and have convictions, but it meant so much to them that they were having wars about it. But that's not what the whole wars were about. The wars were about the authorities in society had been challenged, and that led to different groups coming up. Martin Luther had different problems dealing with peasant revolts and dealing with different princes and stuff like that. And they weren't really fighting about theology, but theology became like a channel that was used, among the church leaders to control fighting. And that can happen even within Vaishnavism. But it shouldn't happen. If we keep our eye on the ball, if we know that the goal is to serve Krishna, that Krishna is the Father of all living entities, he's the controller of all the planets and demigods, he's the beneficiary of sacrifices, and he's the dearmost friend of everyone, not just our group. It's not like, that's duality, right? Krishna favors us, we're the Americans, but he doesn't favor the Mexicans or something like that. That's ridiculous. Krishna he's in the hearts of all living beings are his his children, but those who are actually teaching about Krishna, studying about Krishna, Prabhupada's books, and distributing them, they're doing a very great thing, and they should be supported and encouraged, and they're not violent. When we were hearing earlier today, when I got in, then Srivas Pandit was giving the Bhakti Shastri class, and they were talking about how devotees are intolerant of blasphemy, even though they're humble and they're meek. When Lord Nityananda was attacked by Jagai and Madhai, immediately Lord Chaitanya came there to kill them. But Lord Nityananda told him, in this incarnation, if you kill all the demons, you'll have to kill everybody. Nobody is qualified. So Lord Chaitanya's come to just kill the greedy mentality, the materialistic mentality, the atheistic mentality in people's hearts, and very freely give them that sublime love, spiritual love, which is rarely attained even by the great yogis and great philosophers. So we're not a movement that advocates violence. I mean, police have to be there. Somebody has to keep the criminals in check. We need, a certain amount of, military force. I think they way overdo it, and build all these weapons and spend all this money, and there's economics involved and everything like that. But there needs to be a class of people who keeps the king's peace, so to speak, captures the criminals and makes sure that crime is kept down, and there's a justice system to resolve disputes and things. All that stuff needs to be there. But why? What's the purpose of it all? If we remember that it's to please Krishna, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and He's the supreme friend of everyone, then we can become it. We can actually find a golden age appearing on earth like Satya Yuga, or even better, where it's like the spiritual world. When Ramachandra was king in Ayodhya after coming back from Lanka, it said that the citizens didn't even feel the miseries of material existence. And that can really happen. If the world is, if everyone is engaged in devotional service, yes, there will be frustrations. When you work in an office like I do, and you're trying to get something printed out, and then it doesn't have enough toner, and then you accidentally didn't do something. The natural thing is to become frustrated in getting things done. But if the purpose is to do it for Krishna, then that frustration also becomes spiritualized. It's not. It doesn't go into your heart. It's some external thing that easily flows off you. So you can see devotees getting very enthusiastic to get out on Sankirtan in time, and then what are you doing? You don't have your clothes on yet. Go get dressed and get ready to go out. That's all right. That's not being not peaceful, because that's actually being dedicated to Krishna's service, and the supreme peace is there. The purpose is there. So I did have something else to say, but I'm forgetting that too. Do we have any more discussion, or?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question actually in Discourse, in Gita and everywhere, that from Krishna everything emanates.
Yes.
Material energy, everything, spiritual energy, everything. But Krishna told that he is detached from the material energy. How it is possible, I am not understanding. Can you explain something about it?
Yes, well, this is the mystery of Krishna, that everything comes from him, even the material energy, yes, but he's detached from the material energy. Yes. What that means is actually he can use his energy to put you in illusion or put you in enlightenment, in Krishna consciousness. Just like Srila Prabhupada gives the example that The engineer can use electricity to heat or cool, air conditioning or heating. So for those, like we were saying before, Krishna is fulfilling everyone's desire, but they don't know what to desire. So that for those who are desiring to be independent of Krishna, to not remember Krishna, to become like Krishna themselves, to become themselves the enjoyers, and not to have to serve, but to be served, then Krishna fulfills that desire by putting them in the illusion. And that material energy is what Krishna's use of his energy to put them in the illusion so that they think that they're not dependent, that they're not servants, but that they themselves are servants. But actually they're still servants. They can't be anything else. They're identifying with the material body, thinking this is me, and it's being served, but actually they're being the servants of the material body and the material necessities of the body. So it's keeping them in bondage by this illusion. So Krishna really is attached to the energy, but he's not attached because those who saw Krishna's connection would no longer be an illusion. Therefore we take things, apparently material things, right, a flower, a lamp, something, and we say, now we're going to offer it to Krishna. Actually it belongs to Krishna, it comes from Krishna, but when we offer it to Krishna, then we perceive its connection to Krishna. It's now being used in its proper relationship with Krishna, and therefore it becomes spiritualized, it becomes prasadam. And we also become able to see Krishna, how he's connected to everything. So Krishna is really connected to everything, but what makes something material is our failure to see how he's connected to everything. Therefore in the Srimad Bhagavatam he says, Riter tat yapratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyaratmano mayam yata bhasha yatasava yata tamaha. It appears to be in darkness. It's my illusory energy. If you think something is valuable without relation to me, then that's my material energy. And it appears to be in darkness. But if you see how it's actually Krishna's property and offer it back to him, then it becomes spiritualized. And this whole world, even though we're here in the material world, it can become spiritualized by our Sankirtan. Sankirtan means complete kirtan, that we're bringing everyone in to complete glorification of Krishna. And if we want to transform all the material things to spiritual things. And when a pure devotee uses something, when I was first in the temple in St. Louis, and I was walking around the temple doing japa, and there was a little stick that was like on a table. There was a little, like a piece of wood, and it was a little broken or something like that. And I said, what's that? And they said, Prabhupada was playing the gong, and he was using that stick to hit the gong. So now we keep that stick there because Prabhupada used it. It's become spiritual. It's a fact. And these whole temples, because we dedicate the temple to Krishna, it may look like it's made of wood and, what do they call that? Gypsum board, gyprock, what do they call it? Drywall and paint and these things. But actually it's all becoming spiritual, just like the buildings in the spiritual world are made of chintamani. So when we dedicate something to Krishna, it becomes spiritualized. And you can perceive that. And it works. I was saying that before, that this chanting of Hare Krishna, it really works. People might say, it's just a name, you could chant anything. But the fact is that if you chant this Hare Krishna according to this process, and you hear from the devotees, and you associate with the devotees, you take prasadam, and you actually apply the process, very quickly you will be able to meditate on Krishna better than the yogis who've gone through lifetimes and lifetimes of practicing breathing exercises and sitting exercises and everything. It's a fact. It really works. It's a method. Prabhupada says, once again. It's arousing by practice. What does it say? Arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. That's one for the record books. We got to keep arousing. Mukaravinda's already memorized it. Arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. So that's Bhakti Yoga, and all the other yogas lead to Bhakti Yoga. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So this verse of being peaceful is also, we can draw a parallel from Srimad Bhagavatam, where there is a very wonderful example of this contrast. And that example is of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. So Hiranyakashipu had everything in the world. He had the biggest armies, he had the biggest benedictions. He had achieved everything in his life. Still he was not peaceful even for a second. Whereas Prahlad Maharaj, his little child, he practically had nothing. He had nothing compared to what he knew. But he was peaceful because he was following this verse of completely taking shelter of the Lord. And from Prahlad's lotus mouth, a beautiful verse comes out. I would like to recite that.
Please.
That's Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.5. Shri Prahladu Vacha Tat Sadhu Manne Shuravarja Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Dhiyam Asadgrahat Hitvatma Patam Grihamanda Kupam Banam Gatoyad Harim Ashrayeta. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to forest, vana. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Jai. So how do we go to Vrindavan? Does it mean that we should quit our jobs, sell our house, and buy an airplane ticket and go to Vrindavan? Or we go to Vrindavan by chanting our rounds in the mood of Vrindavan, and remembering Vrindavan, and hearing about Krishna in Vrindavan. Then we don't have to become sannyasis. Maybe someday we'll become sannyasis, or maybe some of us will be able to become sannyasis even while young, we've seen. But the point is that we have to accept that Krishna is the beneficiary of all sacrifices, the supreme controller of all planets and demigods, and the dear most intimate friend of all living entities. And when Shyamasundar Das was giving his memory tape of Srila Prabhupada, you've seen these tapes that Bhaktisiddhanta makes, and he was talking about Srila Prabhupada. He mentioned that the Beatle, George Harrison, was having his painting painted or his bust sculpted by some famous artist. And the same artist was at the same time doing the Queen of England. So when the artist was with George Harrison, he said that Queen Elizabeth was holding, when she was sitting for her portrait, she was holding Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in her hand, and she was saying, Krishna is the beneficiary of all sacrifices, the controller of all planets and demigods, and the dear most intimate friend of all living entities. Oh, wouldn't it be grand if that were true? That's what the Queen was saying. So the artist told George Harrison that the Queen was saying that. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful if that were really true? And so then George Harrison went and told Prabhupada. He thought Prabhupada would like to hear that the Queen was holding his book and what she said. And Prabhupada responded, she doesn't understand that love is a two ways. That, yes, Krishna is the friend of all living entities and is in charge of everything, but if they don't want to accept his friendship, then he lets them remain in illusion. But if they want to accept his friendship, then he gives them that peace. So they have to know that about Krishna. They have to have that Krishna consciousness, and then they experience the peace. It's not just that Krishna gives peace to everyone. It's that most people are struggling with kama, krodha, and so forth, like he's explaining elsewhere in this chapter. And it's only if they come to Krishna consciousness that they achieve peace. So Prabhupada had that response to that. But it's nice to know that Queen Elizabeth was also reading Prabhupada's books. So how's that for a celebrity endorsement, right? All right, Sri Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Hare Krishna. So now it's 6 o'clock, right? Is that what time for the arti? Okay, so now we'll have the arti. Jai, Hare Krishna.
Jai.